It's Monday, the 26th of July, 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. In today's headlines, New South Wales is heading for an extended stay in lockdown, but South Australia and perhaps Victoria to loosen restrictions tomorrow. Plus, Wall Street hits a record high as 90% of companies beat forecasts this earnings season. Crown Casino could be given 18 months to get the house in order, and cattle prices hit their highest level on record. Victoria and South Australia are set to emerge from full lockdown tomorrow, but New South Wales is set for a long stint under restrictions after a weekend of new cases and protests across the country. The death toll from the current outbreak in New South Wales rose to 8 yesterday after 2 deaths, including a woman in her 30s. There were more than 300 new cases in the state over the weekend, and more than 30% of them were in the community while infectious. Premier Gladys Berejiklian said New South Wales couldn't consider reopening until more people were vaccinated, although Prime Minister Scott Morrison played down the relationship between lockdowns and vaccinations. The federal government provided a new recommendation that all adult Australians consider getting the AstraZeneca jab. The Australian newspaper this morning is reporting that the state government has requested financial modelling for a lockdown of Greater Sydney extending until mid-September. There are 11 new cases in Victoria, all linked to existing cases, and all of which were in quarantine. There were 2 new cases in South Australia, both of whom had been in quarantine. All the premiers were angry about protests in their cities over the weekend, the biggest of which was in Sydney. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews called them self-indulgent, selfish and wrong, while New South Wales' Ms Berejiklian and the Prime Minister said the scenes were disgusting. In overseas news, Wall Street hit a record high on the weekend, thanks to stronger than expected profits and robust economic data. Both Twitter and Snap, the parent company of Snapchat, surged after reporting results that beat Wall Street forecasts. With around 1/4 of companies already having reported June quarter results, 90% have beaten expectations. There were major protests not just in Sydney and Melbourne, but around the world over the weekend to rally against COVID-19 measures and government sanctions. Across France, Italy and Greece, there were hundreds of thousands of protesters, and there were tens of thousands in Brazil. The person in Sydney who punched the police horse wins the gold medal for most stupid protester, and that's saying something. And this week, the United States and China are due to hold their first high-level talks since March. It could be frosty, but at least they're talking. The US plans to bring up human rights abuses in Hong Kong, but wants to reassure Beijing that it's not building an anti-China coalition. Both sides have put climate change on the agenda. Locally, the Star Group dumped its merger deal with Crown Resorts on Friday. The deal priced the Melbourne-based company at $12.50, which was a touch high given it was a merger, and Crown's share price is currently around $10. Meanwhile, the council assisting Victoria's Royal Commission has suggested the cancellation of Crown's licence could be deferred for up to 18 months to give the gaming group the opportunity to mend its ways. It would minimise the impact on shareholders and 12,000 staff if a deferral was given, according to closing submissions. And if the gaming regulator doesn't cancel its licence after Commissioner Ray Finkelstein's inquiry, then a monitor should be appointed to oversee the company's cultural transformation, council said. Cattle prices have hit a record high and are more than double the price of 2 years ago. The benchmark is the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator, and it's breached $10 a kilogram for the first time. The challenge for local producers is to have enough supply. Herds were downsized during the drought that broke a couple of years ago, but that's hardly time for farmers to fully restock. Last financial year, frozen and chilled beef exports were down 25% from the previous year. According to a report in the Financial Review, most analysts expect prices to come off somewhat, but no one's really sure. It does mean more expensive beef in the supermarket. One of the better selling points in recent years about sustainable investing was that returns at least matched other options. People could invest and make money while also helping the environment and community. Figures from Research House Super Ratings released last week have cast doubt on that. Super Ratings said the average annual return of a median sustainable balanced option was 8.3% over the past 5 years, which was below the 8.7% delivered by the typical balanced option. Hester had the top performing sustainable growth fund, which delivered annual returns of 11.8% to members. And finally, anyone else amazed at the coverage of the Olympic Games? The 7 Plus channels allow streaming of numerous different events, and while not perfect, it is very comprehensive. Saturday delivered the biggest day of live streaming in Australian television history, 172 million minutes, about twice as much as a previous record. Clearly, Seven's coverage is benefiting from the lockdowns. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning. And if you'd like more detail and more stories, search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. We also release a daily interview. Today we're talking to CMC Markets' Cindy Leung about investing overseas. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.